Good afternoon, Mr. Potgieter.
Good afternoon, Chief Justice.
How are you this afternoon?
I can't really complain, Chief Justice.
Good. Welcome, and thank you for availing yourself for consideration for appointment to the bench. I understand that in the past, certain people had made attempts to persuade you to make yourself available, but did not succeed. It looks like somebody has succeeded this time.
JP is a very persuasive man. CJ, he told me the first time when I went down there that the understanding is that cattle always graze towards the homestead.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. I'm going to ask you certain questions, and after that, I will allow the Judge President to put questions to you, and after that, the Premier, and after that, any commissioners who might wish to ask you questions. I have known you for a very long time. I think you acted in the Labour Court at some stage when I was JP, did you not?
That was my second acting term.
Yeah.
The first one was in the CPD, and then immediately after that, when you were JP, I was in the Labour Court, mostly in Johannesburg.
Yes.
And then again in 2007.
Yes. And also, I can say that I had also asked you to join the Commission's legal team at some stage, but certain circumstances didn't allow you to stay for too long.
Indeed.
Yes, but you had agreed to come to the Commission and contribute.
Yes, the pandemic unfortunately played havoc with us there.
Yes.
But it was a good sojourn, I must say.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's fine. I see that you, in terms of academic qualifications, you hold a BA Law degree, a BA Honours in Philosophy, an LLB degree, an LLM in Constitutional and International Trade Law, and a diploma in International Trade Law. Is that correct?
That is correct, Chief Justice.
And you got the first three degrees, that is BA, BA Honours, and LLB, at the University of the Western Cape. Is that right?
That is correct, Chief Justice.
And the years respectively were 1978, 1980, and 1981.
That is correct.
Is that correct? And then you obtained your LLM from the University of South Africa.
That is correct.
And the diploma in International Trade Law you obtained from the University of California in 1998.
That is also correct, Chief Justice.
Yes. You have been at the bar for quite a long time. How many years have you been at the bar?
Chief Justice, I opened chambers in June of 1985.
1985.
That's right.
And that makes it how many years? Close to 30?
Yes, Chief Justice, my mathematics is now right.
Yes.
About 37.
Or is it more?
Yes.
It's actually more than 30.
Yes.
Yeah, it's close to 40.
37 actually.
Yeah.
Chief Justice.
That's quite a long time.
Well, it doesn't feel like it though.
Is that reflective of your energy?
Indeed, I sincerely hope.
Well, I hope the JP has heard that in case you are appointed, he can give you a lot of work. You have a lot of energy.
No, he hasn't spared me, Chief Justice. He's a very good man, but he hasn't spared me.
Well, that might not help you. He might give you a lot of work, nevertheless. Now, during all these years being in practice, obviously you would have been exposed to cases from various branches of law. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you want to just share with the commissioners some of the branches of law that your practice got you involved in?
Yes, Chief Justice. It has taken the normal trajectory of a practice at the bar. Of course, I was an attorney between 1980 and 1985 when I started at the bar. So I started off, I did articles in Cape Town. I couldn't get articles in my hometown back here after I studied, finished off my qualification. So I did articles and I qualified as an attorney and a conveyancer initially, and then practiced as an attorney and then qualified as a notary. As an attorney, I've had a very varied practice. I was very busy in litigation, so I've done the stuff that young attorneys do. I cut my teeth in the magistrate's court, criminal court, running around, learning how to cross-examine. And as I increased in seniority, I had a more office-based practice as an attorney, but still very varied, until I've decided to focus on litigation, which I did for the last 2 years or so as an attorney. And that is what prompted me to go to the bar. And I got there in the beginning of 1985. And as I've said, I finished the pupillage. In those years, it was only 3 months. And I started practicing. And then about a month or so after I had opened my chambers, there was the first initial state of emergency in what was then known as the PWV. And then, of course, it was subsequently extended across the country. And I was drawn into all of the litigation that flowed from a state of emergency. So I've done criminal matters that emanated from that. I've done detainee released applications. I've done a whole host of things.
Yes, you would have done applications for the release of detainees, and during those years, did you also do political trials?
Oh.
A lot of those.
Yes, perhaps too many.
Yes.
Chief Justice, I was doing matters all over.
Yes. And when did you take silk?
I eventually took silk Chief Justice, if my memory serves me now well, it was Friday the 13th.
Which month, which year?
Of 1996.
1996.
Yes.
Yes. So you have been practicing as a senior counsel for the past, 24 years or so?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thereabouts, Chief Justice.
Yes. And have you acted numerous times in different courts?
Yes, Chief Justice. In
the Western Cape, you have acted quite a lot there.
Initially, in fact, Chief Justice, in 1995, I got appointed to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission as a commissioner, and then appointed to the Amnesty Committee. So,
yes.
In order to adjudicate amnesty applications, I was appointed acting judge in the CPD, and then seconded to the Amnesty Committee in 1998. So I've acted in that capacity doing the work of the Amnesty Committee until 2001. And then after I left, the work of the commission was concluded. I had my first acting stint then in 2002, if I remember correctly, in the CPD. And then there were a few that followed on that. And then I also, at the same time, had the stints in the Labour Court.
Yes. I take it over the years, during your various acting stints, you have written numerous judgments in the High Court.
I have, Chief Justice, one at, the initial appointments. I've done a host of things. Who's not available?
Yeah.
But I can confirm that I've done
numerous.
Virtually all of the work that judges do in a division such as the CPD.
Yes. And you have sat in full bench appeals and so on.
I have, Chief Justice.
And of course, motion court as counsel is something you would have a lot of times, as well as trials and so on. But also when you were acting, you would have done all of those.
Oh yes. When you start off as Chief Justice is obviously aware, when you start off at the bar, then motion court is your bread and butter.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Well, I've been asking other candidates these two questions that I'm going to ask you, but somebody like you who has been in practice for so long, it just feels that one should not. But because I've asked other candidates, I will ask you. When you sit on appeal and have to consider an appeal against a decision that is taken in the exercise of a discretion, under what circumstances can you interfere with such a decision?
Yes, Chief Justice. The underlying issue is whether or not there would be a gross irregularity. It is termed in the judgments, the precedents, as having to exercise a judicial discretion. So if you haven't exercised a judicial discretion, then that would constitute a basis for interfering. Of course, they have unpacked that concept. There are various ways in which they've unpacked it. They say you shouldn't have acted capriciously, on a wrong principle, not for substantial reasons, etc., etc. But basically, it is where there has been a gross irregularity in the exercise of that discretion.
And when you are sitting on appeal over judgment of a trial court, and you are invited to interfere with factual findings made by the trial court, under what circumstances may you interfere with such findings?
Yes, there also, Chief Justice, of course, the judgments use a shorthand. They refer to gross irregularity, gross misdirection. I'm sorry, gross misdirection on the facts. Of course, that is a bit more nuanced in the sense that where the factual findings of the court a quo is based on credibility findings, then of course the Court of Appeal is slow to interfere unless there's an obvious ground for doing so. So the Court of Appeal wouldn't readily interfere in factual findings that are based on credibility. But as I say, the shorthand is really if there is a gross misdirection.
Yes. I will now give the Judge President an opportunity to ask questions. Judge President.
Thank you, CJ. Good afternoon, Mr. Potgieter.
Good afternoon, JP.
With your vast experience as a lawyer and your exposure in various branches of the law, let me take this opportunity to thank you for availing yourself in my division in an acting capacity from time to time and availing yourself for this interview today. That having been said, how will your appointment advance the transformation agenda?
Yes. Chief Justice, I know that is what the law says. I'm not particularly keen on the old classification things, but in any case, be that as it may, so far as I know, I have been the only member of this group that I am supposed to represent that has been working in that division in Kaberga particularly. So my addition to that compliment on the bench there would certainly not detract from complying or promoting proper reflection of the demographics and that requirement that is set in the Constitution.
Yes, finally, you've been in private practice now for something like 42 years, including the period during which you were an attorney.
Yes, somebody helped me write. They said about 37.
37 in all.
37 JP. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, if you were to be appointed, you would serve for approximately 10 years.
Yes.
Does that count in your favor or not?
Well, JP, it's about a decade. I believe that I would be able to make a valuable contribution in that time. I'm well able to deal with the physical and the mental demands of this this role. I have, in fact, throughout, even in my practice, JP, been able to maintain quite a strenuous work rate, as it were. So I believe that I'm well able to deal with the demands of this. In fact, it's important for a puny judge, I believe, JP, that you've got to get through your workload. I suppose for any judge, but for a judge in the divisions, you've got to get through the workload. That's your first priority. So you've got to have some methodology, as it were, because it is a very demanding position in terms of time that you've got to invest, etc., etc. So I've been able over the years, and in fact, having had the privilege of working with many senior judges, very, very wise people, been able to work out a methodology of dealing with the workload of a judge. So I've had absolutely no difficulty in doing that. In fact, I have made a point, JP, that once a matter that I've heard is ready to be decided, I would deliver a judgment, give and take, within 2 weeks. I've hardly ever sat on a case that is ready to be decided, and for a judgment to be written for longer than that period.
Yes. If you could indulge me, Chief Justice.
Yes.
One last aspect. I see that you've acted in my division on 3 occasions. The first one being 14 November to 13 December 2019. The second one, 18 January to 26 March 2021. And the last one being 16 August to 18 September 2021.
That's right.
Besides that, I take it that throughout the 35 or 36 years period that you've been an advocate or a practitioner, you have from time to time been acting as a judge, and that therefore the bench has benefited from your skills in the past.
Oh yes, JP, I have acted for over the years, I would say, if you put everything together, for about 4+ terms. So I've spent time acting, and I've made time in otherwise busy practice to make myself available to act.
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, JP. Premier?
Thank you very much, CJ. Good evening, Advocate Potgieter.
Evening, Premier.
Thank you very much. Just furthering the question on transformation asked by JP, what do you believe are the challenges facing the transformation in the Eastern Cape courts, if any?
Premier, I've had the benefit of doing work, appearing in many of the courts around the country. And I must say that the Eastern Cape division is right up there in terms of smooth running in terms of good logistics, necessary support for judges. So I'm just dealing with it from that perspective. So it is really a very, very well-run division, and that's why I was particularly happy to be able to work there. It is my hometown, but apart from that, it was a pleasure to work there. So I. In terms of the court and the way that the court is run and the way that the court is functioning, I can't really identify any negatives, as it were.
Through you, CJ, does that mean from where you are, there is an attempt to really address the I'm just trying to get into a point of the transformative part of it. I hear the efficiency and proper running of the division and all that, but addressing the imbalances of the past, it's where I'm interested at, but also looking at your very rich and very vast experience. To what extent that experience has impacted positively in nurturing young talent, new skills into the division? Do you have probably other young people who have gone through you? Not necessarily young people, also female judges, so to speak.
Colleagues, yes. Although I have been based in the Western Cape, I have never really lost contact with the Eastern Cape. In fact, I'm the only member of my family who had landed up there because of the laws in those years. My wife is in the same position, so I've maintained my contact with the province. So professionally, I've been doing a lot of work there. I mean, I've been appearing. Just recently done a big matter in Mthatha, for example, with 2 black juniors. So I've maintained that contact, and I have always been meticulous in terms of empowerment, etc. So from that perspective, I've always been keen to be involved in the Eastern Cape and in the Eastern Cape courts.
Thank you very much, CJ.
Thank you, Premier. Commissioner Singh.
Thank you, Chief Justice, and good evening, Advocate Polikita.
Good evening, Commissioner Singh.
Thank you, Chief Justice. I don't know, and JP, if there's something about disclosure of addresses from candidates who come from.
I noticed it too. Yeah, on this one.
This is the third one who doesn't have an address.
Sorry, CJ, if I may.
Sorry?
I think I suppose that the Secretariat is blocking it out due to the Protection of Personal Information Act. So it's not a case of candidates not disclosing it. It's because we're not allowed to disclose their private information to the public, which we are basically.
Well, maybe that's an issue that would come after. The first question would be whether the candidate did put it in, but the Secretariat decided not to include it.
Yes,
maybe.
I do. Sorry, Chief Justice. No, I do have it on the on the form.
Oh, you had included it.
Yes, the Commissioner might be right.
But you had included it.
I have my form, yes, with that.
Okay.
With that disclosed.
Well, maybe let me ask, Secretariat, is that what you have done? But in respect of everybody or on the sum? Oh, okay. Well, at least if you had told us, we would not be asking.
I thought there was something.
Well, I know that in February, I had not included mine, but I had given a reason why I had not included my address. So here I was also wondering, but now we know. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation. Premier, I thought the Eastern Cape was somehow special, you know, because the others have disclosed their addresses. But having said that, Chief Justice Advocate Potgieter, I take it that you mentioned hometown.
Yes.
So you were born in the Eastern Cape.
Born
Are you currently residing in Quebec?
No, a commissioner is born and bred in the down there. I only came to the Western Cape when I had to come study. So as I said, my entire family is down there. I've got property down there. I've got property in Cape Town, of course, where my wife and sons are. So I've maintained the link to.
So it would be a move for you. If you are appointed, it'd be a move.
Yes, indeed. I mean,
to live in Quebec.
It's just the two of us, my wife and I. I've got adult sons, practicing lawyers, so they out of the house. Wife and I will go.
No,
she'll
great.
be very happy because she'll be back home as well.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. Yeah, and just a comment, Chief Justice. I see JP Mbenenga has mastered the art of persuasion. Because
yes.
it's deja vu when one considers how he got here. And I think some of us who've been here long enough know how he got here through persuasion, through being persuaded. No, thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Let me check commissioners attending virtually. Are there any commissioners who have a question? Those attending virtually?
Nothing from me, Chief Justice.
Nothing from you. Thank you, Commissioner Barnard. Nothing from.
Nothing from me, CJ.
Thank you. Nothing from Commissioner Breitenbach as well.
Nothing from me, nothing from me, JP. CJ.
Oh yes, thank you, Commissioner Lepu, and I see Commissioner Lucas is online as well.
I'm also fine, thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Commissioner Nyambi.
Thank you, CJ. It's one question. Actually, it's since we have been here, CJ was struggling when he's asking people, candidates, about some significant dates. And you made myself to be jealous when they ask you about dates and you remember even the day. that was great. But there's one issue. The LSSA regard you as a person of moral character and integrity, and it's part of the criteria that we seriously consider when looking at candidates. And they also touch your history when it comes to human rights activism and your involvement in the struggle for democracy and your commitment in the protection of human rights. They say it's beyond reproach. We know that Eastern Cape is vast and rural. Maybe something that you think stand out that you'll immediately address as you have acted for some time in the Eastern Cape when it comes to those rural people, when it comes to access to justice with your appointment as a judge. Because the issue of access to justice, you know very well, is still a challenge in our country, and especially in a vast and rural province like Eastern Cape.
Yes. Yes, no, that is important, very important. From the perspective of a judge, of course, you are somewhat restricted in what you are able to do, but I believe that one of the positive spin-offs of the pandemic is that we have accepted that there are different ways of doing things. I believe that dealing with matters even over a distance in such a way as not to inconvenience, cause people to be out of pocket is the way to go. That to my mind should be the something of the future. In fact, of course, this type of thing has been happening a long time ago overseas. Canada is a very good example of creating access through technology, through innovation, etc., etc. So I believe we must continue down that road, and that is a sure way of bringing the court to the people, or at least closer to the people. So that is one thing that I can think of, Commissioner, in terms of what, as a judge, you can facilitate.
Thank you, Advocate Potgieter SC. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, Commissioner. There are no further. Oh, there is one more. Oh, there are two. Okay, let me just. It's Commissioner Schlemmer.
Thank you, CJ. Good evening, Advocate. Could you tell us what your judicial philosophy is, please?
Commissioner, that a question one must, I believe, necessarily answer in a bit of a roundabout way. I don't approach matters or the work in a preconceived stance or having decided beforehand on a particular philosophy. I know there are various tags that are given to this, but perhaps I can just explain how I go about doing the work. I approach every matter that I've got with an open mind, firstly. I'm sorely aware that you've got to be meticulously impartial. I determine the facts, establish and determine the facts and the law, including as the beacon, the provisions of the Constitution, any statutory text that is applicable, and any legal precedent that applies. And then, having gone through that, I strive as best to dispense justice in the matter. Now, I know there are various sort of tags. You get instances where it is said that some judges are activists, judicial activism. Others with a judicial restraint. There are judges that are said to be judicially minimalist, etc., etc. I'm not quite sure. It's probably for analysts that look at the judgments that I write to put a label on that. But I believe that if you adopt that attitude and you are constantly aware of the values and the principles that underpin the Constitution, and you strive to promote that, then your judgments will probably be automatically transformative, and they could even, in some respects, be activist. But as to setting out with a particular pre-decided philosophy, that's not really the way that I approach the job. That's the best that I can do, Commissioner.
That was good enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Minister, I'm sorry, Minister. Commissioner Klaba, I'll come later.
Thank you very much, CJ, and good afternoon, Advocate Borgedin.
Afternoon, Commissioner.
CJ, my first question has been covered by Commissioner Singh.
Yes.
And I'm satisfied that the candidate has plans to relocate back to the Eastern Cape.
Yes.
And I also note that the candidate has an impressive CV, and his contribution to the development of our legal jurisprudence and his commitment to the protection of human rights has been acknowledged
Yes.
by the various professional bodies.
Yes.
And I wanted just to say that,
Yes.
SJ, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Moimang.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good evening, Advocate.
Evening, Commissioner.
One aspect from my side, in line with one of the criteria, your experience in regard to the values and needs of the community. There has been a clarion call against the need to prosecute those people that were not granted amnesty during the TRC hearing. I see that you were the deputy chairperson of the Amnesty Committee at the TRC. How can you assist both the law enforcement agencies to ensure that that chapter is closed? Because it is beginning to rear its head, particularly given the fact that if you are successful, very soon you'll be on the bench. So it means your time is a bit limited, or if you have had any interaction with either the Hawks or the NP with regard to this chapter. Thank you, Advocate. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. That's a sore point for those of us who have done that work. I don't want to blow our bugle, but we have invested a lot of effort and resources. The country has invested a lot of resources in that exercise. So we were meticulous to make sure that when we closed the commission, that whatever we had in our possession, that in our judgment would facilitate dealing with those cases where amnesty was refused, was in fact provided to the prosecuting authorities. And we had offered our assistance if it was needed to clarify anything in order to facilitate that process going forward. As the Commissioner would know, there has been various arguments as to why that hasn't happened. Unfortunately, I'm not qualified to enter that arena. But I can say that there's absolutely no, and there's never been any reason why that exercise was not proceeded with. Those perpetrators have passed on in the meantime, which was inevitable. I mean, with a delay. So some of them are just not there anymore, but there are others that there's more than enough to proceed with. And I think I can speak for the rest of my colleagues on is that the offer of assistance still stands. And it's for the prosecuting authority to take up that offer. It will stand for so long as it is needed. So that's where we are, Commissioner. It is one of the things that makes me unhappy about that process.
Thank you, Advocate Potgieter. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner. I believe there is only one further hand now, that is the Minister. Minister?
Thank you, CJ. I think my question was taken by Commissioner Moimang. I can just note that I see Advocate Potgieter. We are matching with ties today. I hope I won't be accused of having influence and acting judge.
No, you've got good taste, Minister.
We have come to the end of this interview. It remains for me to once again thank you, Mr. Potgieter, for availing yourself for consideration. If you have 2 or 3 points that you wish to emphasize for special consideration by the commissioners when they consider your candidature, I give you about 2 or 3 minutes to articulate those points. But if you feel that all issues that needed to be addressed have been addressed adequately, that is fine as well.
Chief Justice, perhaps I can just say that when I acted for the first time, I realized that you actually you must be ready to fulfill this role. And some of the more senior judges that I interacted with told me, look here, you would know when you are ready to do this. Well, I believe that I've reached that point, Chief Justice. I'm ready. If I'm called upon to make this contribution, I'll be delighted to do it in Port Elizabeth, in Gqeberha. It would be an honor to be appointed in that court. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Potgieter. Once again, thank you for availing yourself. You are now excused.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you
and
very
Commissioners.
much. Thank you.